Okay, thanks. Well, I have to say that the NGDS project has been one of the most rewarding that I've had the privilege to be involved in. We captured a wide range of relevant data that were put to good use in a derivative analysis of the geothermal potential of a young volcanic field in southeast Idaho, which I'll discuss shortly. Some of those important data in our derivative analysis actually came from the oil and gas well records that we compiled for NGDS, which is kind of ironic in a state that is not known for its oil hydrocarbon production. In addition to compiling existing data, we also drilled several shallow thermal gradient holes and collected new heat flow data in an area with the best potential for new geothermal power development in the state. This summarizes the data sets that we compiled for the NGDS data project, and their relative indicates their relative importance in our derivative analysis, in which we identified a previously unknown high-temperature magmatic sourced geothermal system. It was this NGDS information, in fact, that led us to identify this previously unrecognized geothermal resource. And I think it provides a good example of what a data system like the NGDS can do to improve information access, things like identifying patterns and posing hypotheses, and accelerating the entire process of locating new geothermal prospects. Our supplemental drilling project was focused in an area of southeast Idaho on understanding the Blackfoot volcanic field and the geothermal potential associated with its very young 50,000-year-old rhyolite dome field, shown here in the south end of the Blackfoot Reservoir. There's also a slightly older rhyolite dome set here in the north, about 1 million years old. There's a dearth of existing heat flow information in this area, which was one of the impetuses for choosing this site for supplemental drilling project. For example, the SMU heat flow database only contains 5 shallow well heat flow estimates in this area, and plus a couple of deep well estimates. This bimodal volcanic system is composed of basalt, which is shown in the yellow or beige pattern here, and these rhyolites. It occupies 2 of the northeasternmost grabens in the Great Basin, in this area where the Great Basin transitions into the Idaho thrust belt, shown here with a couple of major thrust faults shown for reference. In addition to the young rhyolite domes, as well as the older rhyolite dome to the north, other features of geothermal interest include extensive traversine deposits shown in yellow, low temperature springs, including those in this area around the town of Soda Springs, where a recent study demonstrated that the carbon dioxide flux in an area of about 50 square kilometers in the southern part of the graben is of the order of 350 tons of carbon dioxide emanating from the hot springs, the soil, and acid ground in this area per year. And this is typical, comparable to the kind of carbon dioxide flux we see in active quiescent volcanoes. And also the study had analyzed helium 3-4 ratios and identified that this is the smoking gun that conclusively shows that this outgassing is of magmatic origin. In addition, we also knew that there were some high bottom hole temperatures and thermal gradients in at least some of the oil and gas wells that have been analyzed in the SMU database. For example, contains this well right here with a high bottom hole temperature of 186 degrees C. And this well up here was drilled recently in 2009, which encountered the highest temperature yet recorded in the Idaho Rust Belt, in excess of 220 degrees C. So in choosing this site for our supplemental drilling project, it turned out that one of the biggest challenges we faced was the NEPA permitting process. We went with siting our wells on BLM land. That worked out pretty smoothly, although we had some problems where eventually 17 of 17 identified possible sites, we wound up permitting 5 and drilling 4. So the 5 here are shown in the black squares. We permitted those 5. We drilled the 4 shown here with numbers, and only B2, B3, and B4 were actually completed as thermal gradient holes. Well B1 was abandoned at 550 feet because we couldn't penetrate the superficial basalts that proved to be much thicker in this area than was expected, and because the thermal gradient hole in such a fast-flowing aquifer as this wouldn't be useful for measuring conductive heat flow. Before I leave this diagram, please note the orientation of this cross-section that I'll get discussed shortly. So judging from the information contained in SMU's heat flow database for this area and our drilling experience in this area, it is equivocal whether or not shallow heat flow drilling could have limited utility in an area such as this because of the strong advective overprinting by groundwater in many of the fractured lithologies in the area. For example, well B2, shown here, which is at the south end of the study area, about half of which, the thermal profile, about half of which spans quaternary basalt, is strongly affected by advective influences, as you can see in the structure and the thermal profile here. And its elevated heat flow basically was calculated from this conduction-dominated regime in the very shallowest portion. And so this is a unrepresentative conductive heat flow estimate for this area. But that knowledge there, coupled with this hole here, B4, up at the north end of the study area, this one right here, was important in laying to rest a problem or a question that was came up in the looking at the data in the SMU heat flow database, which had a well situated very close to this red dot right here, the thermal spring. This conductive profile here resulted in a very low heat flow, less than 50 milliwatts per square meter. Sorry, that should be B4. Less than 50 milliwatts per square meter, and what that value says, we think is a confident value. Being so close to the high value in the SMU heat flow database, is that we interpret it to reflect that the SMU data point reflects the presence of a warm water aquifer at shallow depths, such as a situation that was encountered nearby during exploratory drilling for phosphate ore in the 1970s. So out of our 3 holes, only B3 displayed the thermal profile that was purely conductive and with above background heat flow. This is a cross-section that I referred to a couple of slides back, and we see that B3's, which is located right here, heat flow is pretty similar to heat flows calculated from oil and gas well data that we compiled from the NGDS data project in the same area. And as indicated here, there's a zone of hot, dense brines underlying this area at depths of 2.5 to 5 kilometers in Jurassic and Triassic rocks that pretty much runs the length of the graben, but displaced from the graben, which is over here to the east. In fact, the hottest part of this zone is found 20 kilometers to the north of this cross-section, with heat flows up to 160 milliwatts per square meter and thermal gradients up to 60 degrees C per kilometer. And I'll summarize that in a moment. A working hypothesis is that magmatic heat from the magma chamber here, which the depth is well constrained from thermobarometry work that was done about 10 years ago at Idaho State University on the rhyolites themselves, and that constrains the depth at between 12 and 14 kilometers. And so the working hypothesis is that magmatic heat is being transported away from the graben rather than being allowed to rise vertically and ending up somehow in this hot zone, perhaps along fluid flow pathways that are dictated by these regional thrust structures. If so, this could explain the dearth of high-temperature thermal manifestations that we see in the graben itself. This is a summary of the NGDS data and results of that data analysis from deep oil and gas exploration wells. And it shows basically that low bottom hole temperatures and heat flows in the graben itself and south in the Bear Lake graben down here, and elevated bottom hole temperatures and heat flows in part of the Idaho thrust belt adjacent to the graben. Now, the way this transpired historically, or as the project evolved, was that these bottom hole temperature data that we were compiling for the NGDS led us to evaluate other information that we had compiled, including well logs, formation tops, and drill stem test data. And that gave rise to a detailed analysis of thermal conductivity and heat flow by Mark Gwynn at the Utah Geological Survey, as well as of the spatial distribution and chemistry of the hot brines that were sampled in some of these wells. And the results of this analysis, summarized here on the left side of the diagram, are going to be presented at GRC this fall. As you can see, that this economic zone, target zone, is based on Rick Alice's et al.'s analysis of the temperature and depth constraints in which economic drilling for geothermal and sedimentary rocks of this nature is possible. And we see that these wells out here, north of the dome fields, the rhyolite dome fields, appear to be the target zone of interest. So the bottom line is that we've got an area here in which over 100 square kilometers, an area in which heat flows are in the 120 to 160 milliwatt per square meter range, and with fluids of these temperatures occurring at depths of between 2.5 and 4 kilometers. So in conclusion, a previously unrecognized high-temperature geothermal resource we've identified as a derivative product of our NGDS data compilation effort. And this is something I think that may not have happened or would have taken much longer had we not had access to such data. Now, granted, we were the ones compiling the data, but if we had not been and we had the ability to access this kind of information on the NGDS, I think a similar kind of result would have ensued. Boise-based U.S. Geothermal is aware of our findings, but in speaking with their chief geologist, we get the feeling that because of unfavorable economic conditions currently associated with geothermal power development in Idaho, they aren't really all that interested right now. On the other hand, a mineral exploration company out of Utah was drilled the highest temperature well in 2009 in the thrust belt, is apparently interested in drilling another well and performing seismic surveys in the area. What remains to be seen, though, is whether they're after the heat or possibly minerals in the brine, because we've identified that these brines may in fact contain some strategic elements because of the nature of the geochemistry of this rhyolite, known as a topaz type of rhyolite, which has very high concentrations and is known to be associated with accelerative accumulations of things like lithium, for example, in associated deposits. So going forward from here, IGS is part of a Play Fairway proposal with UGS and the Energy and Geoscience Institute to evaluate the reservoir characteristics and the structural context of this geothermal prospect. And with colleagues at Idaho State University, the Idaho National Lab, and elsewhere, we will be convening a proposal development workshop in late summer that's funded by NSF's SAB Heat project program to investigate basic geoscience aspects of this fascinating system. There's so many interesting questions that I've listed right here, just a few of them, but I think I'm really hoping that we'll be able to be looking at this for some years to come to get other interested parties to look at this system and take it seriously. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, thank you. Very nice summary for the last presentation, and thank you for sticking with us and switching times there. So
you bet.
With that, I'll go ahead and unmute everybody. And any questions for John or comments on the research that's going on in Idaho?
I think we're had a long day.
All right.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to give other folks a chance, but I definitely, John, this is Arlene, have had the opportunity to watch the drilling process go forward, and I just want to say that it was a really thorough process. I think the company that you used, I think Doug Amy also used.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I was just very impressed by the methodic approach, and one of the wells didn't work, but there were good reasons for that, and so I just had a positive comment there, and then I have something else about for everybody, but I'll defer unless others. Sure, unless others have comments for John or questions.
Sounds like I think we've, as John said, had a long session here. But Arlene, why don't you go ahead with your general comments, and then we'll close up with ours.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm hoping what I want to do with our outreach and communications team, and I talked to Margaret about this, Jody, myself, Sharon, in continuing to help you guys deploy the system under U.S. Gen Foundation, Inc. We'd like to put together some of the state maps that have been presented, maybe in kind of an atlas format, both digital and hard copy, so we can promote the work that's been done under this project. So we'll be getting back in touch with you all to highlight your work, and of course through Kim and Lee. But I think if we just compiled the maps alone that have been produced from this effort, it would be a very interesting compilation to showcase the new geothermal data and the potential that's out there. So that's just the thought we had going forward. If there's anything else we can do to help, don't hesitate to let us know.
But I think I would just like to once again thank the reviewers that have been with us since day one and helped really form and shape the direction of the data collection that we've had. So a big round of applause to Lisa, Dave, and Rick, who've been online and part of this project. And
I second that. Yay.
And then the second part of it is a big thank you to the people that took all those comments and integrated them into your scopes of work and worked with us as we helped revise those and came up with these wonderful products that you've shown off today. I am going to send around an email that requests permission to use your recordings on our YouTube channel. So if you do not want your presentation up there, please do send me an email. But thank you again. Really, it's been fun. So I guess we could turn on our camera here too.
Hi.
And you can see all of us.
And look, Tim Reinhardt has never looked so feminine.
We'll make sure to send him a picture, but that's our team there. So, all right, thank you all that have been on the phone this afternoon. Really, really appreciate it. And Arlene, thanks for sticking around after 5 p.m. your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks everyone for indulging me in these flash presentations.
Right,
Great.
and I think we're going to build on Arlene's comments there. What we've seen today, we have incredible success stories that we need to go out and sell and market and showcase to the industry and to the users out there. So this has really been, I think, an eye-opener of just how extensive and how important the results of this are, and we need to get that stuff out to the people who are going to use it. So we're going to do some brainstorming here, but we're open to ideas, suggestions.
Yeah, Rick here. I would endorse the issue. You probably think you've been pushing and advertising this for years, but getting people more familiar with the value of the database is basically where you're at. And I know we here at Utah, I think we've been involved with 6 different papers for the upcoming GRC, but in all cases, we used internal data, local websites or whatever, and we haven't really appreciated. We could have been mining this database, but because for various reasons we just weren't aware that it was now more accessible than in the past. And it was only leading up to this meeting yesterday, finally taking another look and realizing there's a heck of a lot more there, especially with SMU, hopefully USGS. So somehow or other, you've got to reach out to everyone and say, hey, we're up and running, come and take a look at it. I know you've been trying to do that the last couple of years, but now I think you've got it to a state where people are able to mine it.
Okay. But Rick, that indicates the challenge. Like you said, we've been saying this for the past couple of years, had a lot of the functionality out there, but it's making that final connection for people to recognize that and really adopt it, go, oh my God, I really can use it. So
I think there'll be a big challenge. There'll be a big challenge on the commercial side, because basically this is free, isn't it? A federally funded project. It's always going to be free, and the geothermal industry is not very profitable. So your challenge is going to be how, where's it in the geothermal side of things, where's the revenue going to come from?
Oh, well, yeah, we're working on that.
Now, one of the things that we skipped on our presentation due to timing was some of the items that we've been working on in terms of development of services that USGen can provide, including training and education on open data compliance. Now we've got some an assessment, a data assessment, as well as a data strategy for interoperability and general data sharing, and then we've got our own consulting services associated with deploying a node, hosting a node, developing plans for different organizations, having the actual data, again, interoperable. But yeah, these are all things, it sounds good on paper to have these plans, but to actually go out and get clients and get funding, that's all I think that we're working on.
But we could go on. I mean, we'll talk about this in Lexington in a couple of weeks, update everyone on the plans, but we know it's late for a lot of folks, so I want to thank you again for just an incredible set of presentations here.
So I think one of the things, though, that will promote people to come to this is that we were part of the White House fact sheet that we showed off at the beginning of this. A link to that, that's a huge piece of information. But yeah. All right. On that note,